Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to talk to you about a very scary, all-powerful, and mysterious number that could affect every decision you make for the rest of your life. I'm talking about your credit score, and if you know what goes into it, it doesn't have to be that scary or mysterious. The reason I decided to make this video is because I have legitimately overheard the following questions asked. What even is a credit score? Isn't it pretty arbitrary? Yeah, I heard it goes up to like 1,000 points, but no one ever gets to 1,000. I heard you shouldn't pay off all of your credit card every month to help you get a better score? Yeah, I also heard that a couple late payments isn't that bad. In this video, I will be answering all of those questions and more. First, I'll go over the general idea of what a credit score even is. Then we'll take a deep dive into some of the factors that go into it. And then last, I'll give you a few tips on how to improve your credit score and maybe even get to that elusive perfect credit score number. To start off, what is a credit score? Why is it important? What is its purpose? Basically, a credit score is like this grade that you get that shows how good you've been at paying off your debts. When you're applying to borrow more money, lenders use this score to determine how likely it is that you'll actually pay them back. The better your credit score is, the more likely it is that lenders will give you money to borrow, and they'll probably give you better interest rates or deals. The actual number of your credit score goes from 300 to 850. 800 is what people call that perfect credit score because it's pretty hard to get your number that high. But all you need to get the best interest when you're applying for new lines of credit is around 760 to 780. What are the factors that add up to your credit score? First, we have payment history that totals 35% of your credit score. This is looking at whether you pay off your debt on time. Then we have credit utilization, which takes up 30% of your credit score. This looks at out of all the money you have to spend that you have been given to borrow, how much of that do you use? Next, we have credit age, which takes up 15% of your credit score. What is the average age of all of the lines of credit that you have? Next up, we have credit mix, which takes up 10% of your credit score. This is looking at all of the different sources and types of credit you have. Maybe that's credit cards, student loans, a mortgage. And finally, we have credit inquiries that takes up 10% of your credit score. This is just looking at how often you apply for new lines of credit. So let's take a closer look at each one of these factors to see what it really means and what you can do to help every single factor so that your credit score overall will improve. Let's talk about payment history first, which again is 35% of your overall credit score. It is the biggest chunk of that number and hopefully one of the easiest categories that you can maintain. This category all boils down to, have you made all of your minimum payments on time? Let's think about this all in percentage of payments made on time. That means the number of payments made on time divided by your total number of payments. If you are at less than 97% paid on time, you're not doing too good. If you're at 98%, you're doing okay, and if you're at 99%, you're doing good. Let me give you a real life example. Let's say you had one credit card for a full year. That means 12 payments total, and you made one late payment. So you've made 11 payments on time divided by 12 total payments. You're actually at a 91.7% paid on time. That's really bad. But let's say this time you have 2 credit cards that you've had for a full year. That means 24 total payments. But you still made one late payment on one of those cards. So you've paid 23 payments on time divided by 24 total payments. You're still at 95.8%, which is still pretty bad, but obviously it's getting better. What that actually tells us is if you have more lines of credit or more total number of payments, you might be setting yourself up for a better payment history. But at the end of the day, the thing that will help you the most with this part of your credit score is just paying everything off on time, every single month. So technically, you only have to pay off the minimum amount every single month in order to have a good payment history. But what I recommend, if possible, is to pay off all of your debt every single month. If you need to set up reminders for yourself, if you need to set up auto payments, do all of that. What this does is ensure that you have everything paid off and your payment history is squeaky clean, but also that you don't gain unnecessary interest and credit card debt. You don't want that. Next, we're on to credit utilization, which is 30%, or the next biggest piece to this credit score number. And remember, this is looking at how much money you actually use out of all of the money you have to spend. Basically, if you're using up a lot of the money that you have to spend, it looks worse to lenders. I feel like this is a little bit of an old and outdated philosophy because lenders are thinking that if you use a whole bunch of money out of the money you have to spend, maybe you're a little bit less likely to pay it back. But honestly, why else would you need all of those lines of credit unless you really needed to use it for something? I don't know. But the important detail here to remember is that utilization is based off of the amount you don't pay off at the end of every month. I'll give you another example to understand this concept. If you have a total of $10,000 that you can borrow from, and you use $9,000 and you don't pay it off by the end of the month, you are at a 90% utilization. But if you still spend $9,000 that month out of the $10,000 you have, but you pay it all off before the end of the month, you are at a 0% utilization. And in terms of ranges of what's good and bad, if you are at a utilization of greater than or equal to 61%, that's pretty bad. If you're around 31 to 60%, that's okay. If you're at 10 to 30%, that's good. But if you're at 0 to 9% utilization, that is fantastic. Again, the best way to improve this part of your credit score is to pay everything off in full at the end of every month. That'll guarantee you'll have a 0% utilization and the best score in this factor. If you can't pay off your total bill at the end of every month, you could figure out what that 9% utilization means in terms of actual dollars for you and just try and get your bill down to that number every month. But again, remember, if you don't pay off your total bill, that credit card interest rate will still get you, so be careful. Another way to help this is actually by having bigger credit. So instead of having that $10,000 to spend every single month, if you have a bunch of credit cards and that total is $100,000 each month, spending $9,000 is going to be a lot smaller of a percentage of utilization. So having more credit cards will actually help you in this category. The other thing you can do is you can actually ask your bank to increase their maximum credit for the one credit card you have right now. People typically recommend contacting your bank every 6 to 12 months to increase that credit spending limit, but it's really up to you. And the biggest myth here that I want to dispel once and for all is that no, you do not need to have a remaining balance on your credit card every month. You should absolutely pay off your entire bill every month. Pay it all off so that you are at a $0 balance by the end of that month. Because obviously 0% utilization is the best score that you can have in this category. Next up, we have credit age, which is 15% of that credit score. And remember, this is looking to see the length of your credit history and the average age of all of your accounts. And the philosophy here is that the longer you have been borrowing money, the better you get at it. The more likely you are to pay off debts, so lenders think you're more responsible. And to give you a range in terms of the longest account you have open, 0 to 4 years is considered bad, 5 to 7 years is okay, 8 to 24 years is good, and 25 plus years is great. So obviously this isn't something that you can change immediately today. You just have to have patience and wait for some of your accounts to grow older. The things that you can do, however, is to make sure you get a credit card as soon as possible. That's typically the first line of credit that anyone ever gets. So getting it as soon as possible just improves that credit age throughout time. The other thing you can do that I was actually fortunate enough to have my mom do for me, which really helped with my credit score, is have your parents put your name in their accounts. Then the credit age for those accounts actually goes under your name as well. For example, the oldest account that I have under my name that the credit score reports on is 15 years old. I'm only 27. I have definitely not been using a credit card for 15 years. But according to my credit score, I have. Next up, we have credit mix, which is 10% of your credit score. Now remember, this is looking at the different sources of borrowing that you are using, whether that is a car loan, a mortgage payment, a credit card, student loan. Again, the philosophy here is that the different sources of borrowing you have, the better mix of all of that, the more responsible you are and the more likely you are to pay everything off. Again, don't know how much I necessarily agree with it, but it is the thinking behind this factor. So there are actually two major types of credit that this factor looks at. One is called an installment credit, and this type of credit has an end date with a monthly payment. Some examples of this type of credit are mortgages, car loans, student loans. All of them have end dates and total payment amounts, but you have to pay it off every single month. The second type of credit is called revolving credit. There is no end date to this payment, you just have to make minimum monthly payments. An obvious form of this would be a credit card. So if you have a couple different sources of credit from both types of credit, you're off to a good start. That doesn't mean you have to have both types of credit to have a good score. For example, I don't have a mortgage, I don't have student loans, I only have credit cards. And I still do pretty good in this category, but you're off to a better start if you have both types. And finally, we have our last factor, and that is credit inquiries, which make up 10% of your credit score. Again, this is looking at how many different lines of credit you're applying to each year. The thinking behind this is that if you're applying to a bunch of different lines of credit in the same year, you look a little riskier to lenders. The lender is probably thinking, why are you applying to a bunch of different lines of credit all in the same year? Did something happen? Are you not going to pay us back? Really, what this is looking at is how many credit checks have been run for you every year. If you apply for a new credit card, there's a credit check. If you're applying for a mortgage and also a car loan, there's 2 credit checks right there. Now, these credit checks actually only affect your score for 1 year. So that means if you apply for a car loan last year, it's not going to affect your credit score this year. But that car loan that you applied for last year, it actually does stay on your full credit report for 2 years. Now, sometimes some of these credit checks could be grouped together, called group inquiries. Say, for example, you are shopping around for mortgage rates at different companies, and each company needs to run a credit check on their own. You could think, oh my gosh, I went to 3 different mortgage lenders, so there's 3 different credit checks that are going to show up on my credit score this year? That's a lot. While in actuality, if you did it all within the same couple of weeks, the credit score will actually group it together and say you got 1 credit check for that year, which is pretty okay. So the best thing you can do to help this category is just to plan out the financial decisions or borrowing that you're going to be making. If you know you have a mortgage that you're going to be applying for this year, maybe don't get a new car loan at the same exact time. If you know you're going to be applying for a new credit card, maybe wait a little bit before you apply for a mortgage. So there you have it. Those are the 5 different factors that roll up into this big credit score number. I'll leave you with a couple final thoughts that will help your overall credit score. Always know your credit score. There's plenty of free websites that do this for you. There's Credit Karma, there's Credit Sesame, and my bank even does a free credit check for me every single week. If you don't know your credit score starting off, how are you going to work towards improving it? You can't. Another tip is to get a credit card as soon as possible. You want your credit history to be as long as possible so lenders think you're pretty responsible. You may also want to get a new credit card every other year or so. You can see how it can actually help a number of those factors. It can help with credit utilization by increasing that total number you have to spend. It can help with credit mix by giving you another type of credit. It can help with payment history by giving you more numbers of payments to pay off on time. The only place that it'll actually hurt your credit score is with that credit inquiry because of that credit check. But honestly, that only stays on your credit score for 1 year, so it's definitely worth it. If possible, pay off those credit cards in full every month. Set up reminders, set up auto payments, whatever you have to do. Just pay it off in full. That way your payment history will be perfect, and also you're not getting interest on any of your credit card debt and have to pay off more money in the end. And the biggest tip I have for you is to plan everything out. Plan out your major financial decisions. That way you know that if you just applied for a credit card and your credit score went down a little bit, that's not going to affect the interest rate they give you when you go to apply for a mortgage. Planning all of these things out means that you'll get the best interest rate, the best rates, the best deals for every single line of credit that you apply for. And that's it, you guys. With all of these different tips and tricks and hopefully new knowledge, you will be much better equipped to have the best credit score possible. At the end of the day, it is just a number. But when that number dictates every major financial decision, it can get hard to get away from. Take a hold of your own financial future and figure out ways to make your credit credit score better, so that at the end of the day, it's not this big, scary, mysterious monster. I really hope you guys learned something new today, and don't forget to give this video a like if you enjoyed this content. If you have any other questions about credit scores or other mysteries in personal finance, don't forget to leave them below. I will definitely be reading them and hopefully making some future videos about them. Please don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed my content, and I will see you guys on my next video.